Welcome to the Something Good podcast, hosted by Renee Mueller, powered by VRLY. This is where we interview top business professionals, industry insiders, operational managers, and thought leaders from around the nation, diving into hot current topics to help you experience something good.
Today we are talking with Jennifer Mack. Do you go by Jen or Jennifer?
Either one is fine. Just know Jenny. You have to be blood related to me to call me
Jenny.
Jenny.
Oh, okay. So Jen Mack, we met, I want to say Boomtown Unite 2 years ago.
No, it was Jeff's I know in Omaha that summer.
Was it the summit?
The summit.
Okay. And then we must have been at Boomtown Unite together after that then.
I went to Boomtown Unite, but I don't remember if we met in person there. I don't know. I feel like I see you all the
We did.
time.
Remember, because you and I were like, oh, we've seen Jeff's presentation so many times, but let's go.
Oh,
Because
that's right.
There wasn't too many people in there. Nobody wanted to see him.
Not true. Not true.
Yeah. So yes, I think we've been at those two events in person. So you have a team, Jen Mack Properties, is that right?
Yep. Jennifer Mack
Eric
Properties
Pearson
in Northern
Realty.
Virginia.
Okay, perfect. And so I'll let you give a little bit of background on yourself and what you do and how long you've been doing this. And
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to see you and be with you. I have been a real estate agent for about 16 years. I come from a military family, so, moved all over the place and worked in the high tech industry in Austin, Texas, right after college and graduate school. And then when my husband decided to join the Army, we were stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where there aren't a lot of high tech software companies. And we had just bought our first house, and I thought, okay, I can do some of this better than our agent did. And some of it he did a really good job of, and I would want to be like that. And so I decided to get my license. That was about 16 years ago.
it's so funny how common that is, because I was interviewing Lisa Sines, who's an agent with us, and she was also an agent with KW in Kansas. And she said, the agent made it look easy. There were a few things I would have done differently probably. And then the same agent encouraged me to get into the business. And so, it's really interesting how that happened. So very cool.
Yeah.
So military brat then is how you grew up.
Yes. Yep. So my husband then joined the Army, and I got my license, and I went to work as the licensed assistant to the top producing realtor in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I believe she still is. And she was this huge personality, just very energetic, very engaging, kind of larger than life kind of person. And she took me under her wing. And for 2 years, we just rocked it. We sold over 100 homes, the two of us together, and she taught me everything. She was very generous with her time. I went to closings, I met appraisers, I went on listing appointments, I worked with buyers, I did it all. And she just
So you joined a team right away then?
Yeah, she just poured into me. And that was really before teams were a thing, at least in Fayetteville, North Carolina, they were not a thing. And we worked out of her home, which was also not really a thing, but they would only give her one desk. And she's like, well, I have an assistant. What am I going to do? And they're like, you only get one desk. So we worked out of her home.
Oh my God.
And it was great. So she taught me everything. And so then of course we got stationed at other places, and then ended up back here in Northern Virginia, where I went to school on and off growing up. I've lived all over the place, but we are now settled here in the DC suburbs of Northern Virginia, and my team services Northern Virginia, DC, and then suburban Maryland. So I usually say anywhere within like a commuting distance of DC, we service.
Okay.
So I've got a team with 3 agents, and then I've got a full-time operations manager, and we work with buyers and sellers, and love what we do, even in this very challenging market.
I was going to say, that's what we started talking about. It's just how challenging it's been. So what have you done, or what have your agents done to get through that? And get through COVID. I don't even know that I really spoke to you much in 2020. We were kind of all just trying to figure out how we were going to maintain. And then once we had that quick comeback, that was so quickly,
Yes.
What do we do now? So yeah. Tell us how you guys got through that. And
yeah, I mean, it was a huge challenge. I was just looking at my numbers. I was comparing this year to last year, and March and April closings last year were fine because I was fortunate enough to not really have people cancel their transactions. So those were people that had gone under contract before COVID was really a thing here, which was really the middle of March, Yep. So all my people that had been under contract did go ahead and go to closing. Thankfully, I'm very grateful for that. But then in May of 2020, I literally did not have a closing. And I usually do 10 to 12 a month. To not have a closing that entire month, I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like March and April, the phone just stopped ringing. It just stopped ringing. Yeah. And people were just frozen. They were trying to decide what in the heck they were going to do. They were
Mhm.
scared for their health, for their jobs, for all of it. Figuring out distance learning, which we're still doing here. I'm not sure if
Are
you
you
guys
really?
are.
No, we're not. For the most part, I would say some of the bigger cities still have maybe part-time distance learning, but for the most part, the kids are back to school, at least in our immediate area. So
Awesome. Yeah, we're still doing it for the most part. So anyway, the phone just really stopped ringing, and I tend to attract kind of type A rules follower clients. I have a lot of government and military clients,
they're all very
and they
analytical
were
and
just
fun
like,
to work with. Yep.
yeah, and they were just like, I love working with them normally, right? Because they're very well
Mhm.
qualified. They do
Yes.
everything you tell them to do, all of
Yes.
that. But they were like, we're not going to break the rules and go look at houses. Like they just didn't. And what was I going to say?
Right. Exactly.
So I was respectful of that. And so I just kind of kicked it into gear with volunteer work and did like thousands of snack packs for, people that needed help and kids that weren't getting fed at school. And I said, you know what, we're just going to put all of our energy into helping others because that's all I knew how to do. I didn't know, I
Exactly.
needed control over something.
Mhm.
So the control that I decided to take was my house was the drop off point and this is what I need and bring it to me and I'm going to make this happen. And that's just what we did for about a month. And then all of a sudden things just kind of like snapped back and it was almost like back to normal. Really.
Right,
It was
right.
such a
Yeah, you hate to
strange
say
thing.
that, but that's exactly what happened. It happened so quickly. And I will
Yeah.
say too, it seemed like it all went very quickly because I was, head down, like you said, volunteering, trying to figure out, okay, which one of these government programs do I need to encourage someone else to apply for? My agents here, like, how do I help them survive? You guys
Right.
need to apply for PPP. Now you need to do this. And they were changing the requirements and everything all the time. So
Yep.
educating them on what to do, educating the buyers and the sellers, having these huge digital open houses or virtual open houses, I should say, so really trying to pivot and figure out what to do and what to tell our clients to do and so forth. So yeah, I think that's really interesting that most everyone I talk to says the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really crazy how it just went right back to normal, which what we were happy about. But of course, like you said, we all had to do business in a different way. So especially with listings, I, as a listing agent, really felt a huge responsibility, both for my clients and then also, of course, for the agents coming through the property, for the buyers coming through the property on how are we going to do this in a safe way, but also in a way that's going to benefit our sellers the most, get them the most exposure,
Right.
while at the same time, making sure we're not compromising health and or anything like that. And so, we just had to really learn quickly. And, I remember, making my big hand sanitizer order. I was like, the minute it occurred to me, I was like, I got to get this because it's going to be sold
Isn't
out.
that funny? It's
And
crazy the stuff that was sold out.
yeah,
It's like toilet paper. Who would have thought toilet paper,
yeah,
But I remember that too. We put together packs for our listing clients, mainly some of the buyers too, just with hand sanitizer and booties and certain things. You're just scrambling to make
yeah.
sure that you're adhering to everything and making people feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. So we just went into real just busy mode of making all of that happen, and business kind of went back to normal, I would say. And then it was just kind of a very busy seller's market as more and more people decided that they wanted to make a move as a result of COVID, which I think I read a statistic that over 50% of homeowners were contemplating a move of some sort due to the pandemic. And so my phone was just really ringing with people saying, my house does not work for me anymore. And I need to get in a new space, whether it was home office, distance learning, backyard, all of those kinds of things. We have a lot of condos in our area. We have a lot of townhomes with very small backyards or no backyard, and people were going crazy because they couldn't get outside to take a break.
Isn't that interesting? Because right before that was like the tiny house movement,
Right.
And it was like those people are like, this is crazy. We need more room, So yes,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And we also had yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say people wanted pools here became a huge thing, which pools were always kind of a liability in Northern Virginia because we have community pools that everybody wants to go to and socialize and bands play and food trucks come and all of that. Of course, those all closed. And so people wanted their own pool. And you still, I think you wait a year now if you want to get a pool put in because the contractors are so backed up.
It is so incredible that it's common all across most markets that I talk to anyway. So like trampolines, pools, they're way behind.
Yes.
Now, of course, every contractor you can imagine is behind with everything. So,
yeah.
But yeah, all of those outdoor things and home offices, home studios, anything that is allowing them to be online or to have more entertainment at home, like RVs. That was the other thing, huge, boats. You couldn't get a boat in every state, practically around Nebraska. So yeah, and it's still that way. So it's just incredible.
It's like that here, especially now going into summer when people are thinking about what they want to do for their summer vacation.
Yep,
and they're like, well, they could get a plane ticket, but then what if something happens and they can't fly? It's like, let's just get the vehicle that we can just be in and feel safe and everything. So, and I think some of these trends are really here to stay. I mean, people ask me every day, are we going to go back to how we were before? And I say, I think we're going to go back about 30%, but I don't think we're going to go back all the way.
Not entirely. It really emphasized the need for technology, which most people should have already had, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it really intensified the need for it. And I do think that those companies are going to stay. If you look at the way that some of these companies are merging, so some of the big companies that have taken buyouts that have combined with, let's say, was it Trello? There was another large company that was bought out, and basically to have the ease of using the data in the realm of technology and data together. How do we marry these entities? So there's been a lot of that, and we were paperless, and thankfully had most of that technology already set up prior to. We had the digital tours, the 3D, the 6D renderings. So how much of that did you guys have? Were you ready? Were you paperless?
Yeah, we were paperless, and I had a bigger office that I'm still paying on, even though I only go there a couple times a week. So I need to decide what to do about that. But my team transitioned to Zoom meetings, and that has worked great. So once a week we get on Zoom.
Zoom.
We're still doing it.
Wow.
Yeah. We're doing one.
Tell me about your office. I guess back up on that part of it, Jen. It's interesting. So you're paying a lease. Was it just for your team, or did you have an office with the Pearson Realty?
Yeah. So my brokerage has a big office, and then I rent a kind of double office in there, and it's $1,000 a month. It's not cheap. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give it up because it's the only kind of corner office with all the windows. And if I give it up, someone's going to pounce on it. You know how that goes.
Yep.
So I don't want to give it up, but at the same time, the Zoom environment for our team meetings has worked well. We do have one team meeting a month in person. So the last meeting of the month we do in person. Sometimes we do more like a social, like lunch or whatever, because I love seeing everybody, but it doesn't necessarily need to be every single week. And I do think it's helped us to be a little more efficient as far as, just not having to take the whole morning for a 1 hour meeting, because here we're all a distance away. I have a buyer's agent on my team who lives an hour away from the office.
Wow.
So for her to be driving into Fairfax, that's literally her whole morning.
Yeah.
So I'd rather her be able to have clients before and afterwards.
Yep.
But I think it is important once a month to see each other. And now we were joking this morning, we're all almost officially all vaccinated. And we were like, we should market that. We should make
we're the only vaccinated team.
We're the vaccinated team.
That is hilarious. Yeah. Really.
So,
it's just interesting to talk to different groups and see who's back in person, who's not. I feel like I lived at the office. I was the only one whatever happens. I've got to be here until the ship goes down, it's like the Titanic here.
Yeah.
And I still do a ton of Zoom calls, Zoom meetings, and it's even in the same community, which I'm not in a community that's very large, to be honest with you, but it's still very convenient to do Zoom calls. However, I love the in-person, it's still not the same sort of, just mingling and really just that personality of the other, it's really hard to get that through Zoom. So
yeah, especially if you've never met the person before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's somebody that you're interviewing, like when I interview people, I still we do the initial call on Zoom, and then the second one is always in person. But yeah, even closings, there's certain title companies that are not allowing us to go in person to closings.
Wow.
And so they have the technology set up where the buyer or seller are going into the title company, sitting by themselves in a conference room with the computer set up, and the attorney is on the Zoom. I'm on the Zoom from my house, which I'll be honest with you, that's kind of really nice.
I bet. Oh my gosh. Honestly, it's been so convenient. I can about imagine. Yeah. We don't. It really has probably had long-term effects on the way that we are going to do business. Is it going to be a permanent thing? I was just talking to a lender this morning that said, I rarely ever go to a closing anymore. We make sure that they're still face-to-face, or you have a Zoom call and they're qualified and they're meeting, and really making sure that everything is done as far as that process goes. But with the closing, they don't need to be there, and they're still the client's happy. They have more time. It really is incredible how much that has changed. So yeah. And I noticed even prior to the pandemic, I think I saw you post a time or two that you had been kind of diving into doing some Airbnbs. So that's part of what brings us to this podcast is, so tell me a little bit about that and the process that you're taking on that.
Yeah, so we owned a rental property in Colorado Springs from when we were stationed at Fort Carson, and we had held on to it when we moved because the value that was like, we bought right at the peak. Basically, we bought in 2007, which in Colorado Springs was kind of the peak of the market. So the value hadn't really gone down too much. Military towns are typically a little bit insulated from that, but the value hadn't really gone up. And I said, you know what, let's just hold on to this as a rental and kind of see what it does. It was a great house, and we weren't anticipating any big like maintenance repair items or anything. So we held on to it, and we actually ended up keeping it for, I guess, like 12 years as a rental, or 10 years after we moved out. And it was a great rental, and it ended up appreciating really well. We had about like $100,000 gain on the value in that amount of time, which we were really happy with. It was like a 360 house. And we were ready then to sell it. And I said, let's do a 1031 exchange so that we can defer the taxes from the gain. And so we started looking at multifamily properties, because in Northern Virginia, the numbers for a rental really don't make sense. If you're looking at a $400,000 townhouse, for example, which here is a pretty, moderate 3-bedroom, 2-bath, not even a garage for 400,000, your rent is maybe going to be about 2,500. So really, when you calculate those numbers,
it doesn't cash flow very well.
It doesn't cash flow very well at all. So put it this way, I have not been working with a lot of investors lately in Northern Virginia. They're just really not putting their money into properties right now.
And there's not much for multifamily then?
Not in Northern Virginia. I've invested in multifamily up in Baltimore, and then we looked at a multifamily in Richmond and thought about buying it. And then I just, it can be a headache with a multifamily, because you've got, we looked at a building that had 5 rental units in it, and it's 5 refrigerators, and it's 5 air conditioning units, and it's 5 hot water heaters, and
bigger scale, bigger problems.
5 sets of tenants with 5 sets of problems in the middle of a pandemic.
Yep.
And I just thought, okay, this just seems like it's going to be way more headache. Decided not to buy that one in Richmond, came back. And I remember I was just scrolling through Facebook on a Saturday morning, and I saw this beautiful marketing video that an agent had done of a property that she had for sale out in what's called Fauquier County. And that's about 50 minutes from my house. And I looked at this video, and she did a fantastic job on it, because I said, I have to buy this house. I am going to buy it.
She sold you, a realtor.
Yes, on her video that she did. It was worth every penny she paid.
That's awesome.
And so I thought, okay, how am I going to convince my husband to buy this? Because it was more really than what we were wanting to spend. And so I convinced him to have a showing. I said, oh, this will be fun. Let's go out to the country. It's beautiful out there. We can stop at a brewery and pick up a growler. I don't know what I said, but something convinced him, like, okay, like this is a date, And so we went out and looked at it. And the minute we pulled up the driveway, he said, yes. So it's on 11 acres. It's a really beautiful kind of modern farmhouse look. It's got like a silo look on one side with like that rusted metal and everything. And just a really cool property. And so he was immediately on board. And the owner,
didn't even know at that point what you were going to do with it?
Well, the owner was using it as an Airbnb. Okay. And so I said to Chris, we could rent this out, and we could get rental income off of it, which we had never talked about before, but we just fell in love with it. And he wrote a beautiful letter to the seller that convinced the seller to accept our offer the first day it was on the market. They had to cancel like 25 showings that were going to happen.
So the letter convinced the seller. That was all it took.
Wow. Yep. And so we got the property and closed on it late spring. And then we took possession like July 1st, I think.
Okay.
And it has just been a really good investment for us. So it's booked a lot of the time. It's a very low tech place. We don't have Wi-Fi there.
That's
no cable.
Yep.
No
I
cable.
Go off the grid. Let's go rent this place.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And we advertise it that way. So the thing with the Airbnbs is you've got to really set expectations with people.
I've noticed that when I've looked on the app and tried to make reservations, it is about the ambiance of the property. Yes. So I'm sure the 11 acres probably helps. Sounds
people love that.
I'm envisioning. Yeah.
Yeah. People love that, especially now, back to nature, running around with their kids. And so we'll get people from Washington, DC who are living in high rises who are just craving that experience of being out hiking around. We have like a hidden swing out in the woods that they can go find and things like that. So yeah, it's been it's not been all unicorns and roses. There's definitely days when you want to tear your hair out, Things, any landlord, listening now knows that things don't break on the days that you would like them to break. They
Right.
always break on a Sunday morning, or, it's not the most convenient thing, but we've had fun with it. My husband and I have kind of bonded over it. You get, we've been married 20 years and you get to the point where I'm kind of doing my thing and he's doing his thing. And this has kind of, been something we do together.
Right. Yep.
So that's been fun. So yeah, it's been great. So it's something.
So is this the only property you guys have now, Jen? Because you mentioned the 1031 that you were going to do on the last property.
Yeah. So we sold the Colorado Springs house and bought this house.
Oh,
doing
okay.
1031.
So you were able to do a 1031 in this one.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about the setup. You manage this on your own. You don't have property management.
Correct.
You structure it as an Airbnb. So how does that work?
Yeah, so we just have it right now. We only have it listed on Airbnb. A lot of people also use VRBO. That's another big site that I'm sure most people have heard of. We have chosen to just streamline everything and just have it on Airbnb. You could certainly have it on multiple sites. There's a way where you can sync the calendars so that you don't overbook, double book the bookings if one person's on one site. Yeah. So there's a way that you can sync that. And then we probably get about 25% of our bookings from my Facebook sphere. Wow. So I will go online. Cool. Yeah. So I'll go online, put a link to it, put a couple of pictures of what we're up to whenever we go out to use it, mention a couple of weekends that are open. And usually I'll get messages from people where they'll want to go ahead and book it. And then they can save the Airbnb fees that way.
Wow. So somebody who contacts you directly, are they going to have preference for your Airbnb?
Of course.
All right. I'll have to remember that.
Yeah,
very cool.
Of course. Yeah, okay. We love sharing it with our friends and family. We love doing that. And we'll try to throw in a free night or something like that. People don't stay at it for more than 2 or 3 nights usually because we don't have the Wi-Fi. So, it's more
enough time off the grid.
Yeah, it's more of just a quick weekend, go do the wineries, go do a restaurant. So we're actually totally fine if it's just booked every weekend and then it's free during the week. The numbers still work for us. So
really? Okay. Yeah. So on average, is it not full then every month?
It's not full every night. And I would venture to guess that the vast majority of short-term rentals are not full every night. You're going to have certain times that your property is more popular than others. For example, if you have a short-term rental in downtown DC, you're probably mostly getting business, people coming for business. Maybe it's not booked on the weekends, or maybe you cater to tourists on the weekends and business people during the week. That would be great. But I think a lot of like beach properties, they're booked all summer, but then for like 8 months out of the year, they may only have weekends booked. So you have to really be very realistic about how many nights a month you're going to be booked and be okay with those numbers. Because if you have to have every night booked in order for this investment to make sense, I would not recommend moving forward with it.
Right. Yeah. Like any other rental, your vacancy rate matters. So if you can't get away with having 1 or 2 months that are not rented out, then you need to just really look at that again. So yeah, that makes sense. So how did you come up with a price then, Jen?
We pretty much used the price that the owner had set before. So we charge $500 a night on the weekend, and then it's $400 a night during the week, just to kind of encourage some people to come during the week. And we do have some, midweek bookings. Like for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've pretty much been booked solid. And so we'll actually do our turnovers between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. We have to get our house cleaner in there and get it turned.
So you don't do that yourself then? That's good to know.
Oh, no. No, that would be impossible. I mean, it's about 4 hours of work to turn the house if you do it right. And we're very particular about how clean it is, especially during COVID. Airbnb has sort of forced their owners to agree to a higher level of cleaning protocol than what they normally do, which is fine. We're fine with it. But it takes her longer, and it's really hard work. And there might be weeks when she's cleaning it 3 times. I mean, I certainly can't, take that time away from my business. So
most definitely.
Finding
so you get like a COVID certification. I'm sorry, but is it?
No, just Airbnb gives you like a list of things they want you to clean every time in between guests.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a pledge that you have to agree to that you're going to do this. And at some point they'll probably take it back to the normal standards.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
So I would say the house cleaner is very, very, very important. In fact, I would go so far as to, if you hear of somebody who has a great cleaner and you would like to buy in that market, buy a property in that market so that you can use that cleaner. That's how hard it is to find really good, reliable help.
Wow.
Yeah. So that has to be something that you really consider, especially if you're going for a more remote property. Where am I going to find somebody? Where do they live? How far are they away from the property? Are they going to be able to get there reliably and get it cleaned and turned? And that's another thing to consider. If you are having a guest check out one morning and the next guest check in that afternoon, are you sure that the person can get there in that window and get it ready? Because the guests want to check in at check-in time. Usually they're ready to start their vacation, you know? So yeah, the cleaner is, so the cleaner is very, very, very important. We love our cleaner. We get them Christmas gifts and really are respectful of her time, make sure that we don't, communicate wrong about dates and things like that. And just to make sure that she stays happy with us.
Oh, So how did you find her then?
She actually cleaned for the person we bought the house from.
Oh, wow. So it worked. You just had like a plug and play type setup.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. And a lot of times when you look for an Airbnb, it's possible to find them where they already were an Airbnb and the owner is happy to share with you the contacts and you can just kind of transition over. But Airbnb does make you get a new listing. So that's a common question that people ask is they want to piggyback on the old listing. If the reviews are good, they will not let you do that because so much of the Airbnb experience is the host. Does the host communicate well? Those sorts of things. So it wouldn't really be fair for the listing to just transition from one owner over to the next, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So very interesting. So you went with Airbnb and not the VRBO, you said, right?
Yeah. And I honestly, I think, again, it was more just because the person we bought it from was on Airbnb and had a lot of success there. And I think I sort of looked at Airbnb as a more kind of, popular, hip kind of, that's kind of the place that our target audience was looking. Whereas I think of VRBO, like my parents use VRBO, which, they're great, but
that's hilarious. It's like Facebook and Instagram.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was kind of more, I think that's kind of what I was thinking. And then we've just had success on it enough to where it hasn't even occurred to me, honestly, to look into VRBO. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I just haven't felt the need to do that.
Yeah,
but somebody certainly could advertise all over the place.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like COVID affected this at all then, really.
COVID has made it busier.
Okay.
So in fact, I'm doing a Zoom on Airbnb tonight. And when I logged into our account this morning, it said searches for stays in your area have increased 432% compared to this time last year.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
Incredible. So because of COVID, people have more flexibility. They want to be with their families more. Again, they want to be in nature. So it's had this huge impact on where people want to go and them wanting to have getaways. And so our occupancy level very well may go down a little bit after people are really back to the heavy sports schedules and all of those things.
Everything's opened back up again. Yeah. People are getting vaccinated, like you said. So we're seeing that, plenty of things are opening up again.
Right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So you look at what's happened with hotels, motels, their pricing all went down because people weren't using them. Is it because there's such a mass amount of people, maybe they're not open even, it's really interesting to see all that. And they want to be with their families, like you said, have the ability to cook their own food and really, do their own thing in the Airbnb. So
people are trying to get away from the more common amenities, away from elevators, away from, you pay money to go to a hotel that has a beautiful gym and a beautiful swimming pool and it's not open.
Can't use it. Yeah.
So, exactly. And that's what's happened in our market with condos is people are saying, I don't want to pay a $900 a month condo fee when I literally can't use the community room, the billiards room, the movie room, the
restaurants aren't open, the lounge isn't open, the bar isn't open,
exactly.
Places, that I went and stayed, it was like, it's all closed. Well, this is ridiculous. And they weren't even cleaning the rooms. You were still being charged for the service, but they weren't cleaning the rooms. So very, very
exactly. Yeah. So I think that's been a lot of it. And so, like I said, it may go back a little bit to the way that it was before. I certainly don't think hotels are going to go away. There will always be, a market for them. But I do think that just that the change in lifestyle that has come about from COVID is people reconnecting with their families, especially, I can only speak for our area. I don't want to speak for other areas that I'm not familiar with, but people in Northern Virginia are so busy. We're so overscheduled. There's literally Saturdays when we have like 12 things, for the kids, this is, and with COVID, all of that went away and people had this time to just talk to each other and relate to each other and cook and have these long meals. I mean, we had like 3-hour dinners out on our screen porch that we never would have had pre-COVID. And it's like, oh, I kind of like my family and I like my kids.
I kind of like my family. Yes. I mean, some had the opposite effect, but yeah, you're right.
Yes.
And that's exactly, my kids for the first time were playing together for, hours during the day, during the evening. And, really, it really produced a lot of positivity as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we had no choice but to hang out with each other. Right. So
that's right.
So yeah, so I think that a lot of that is here to stay. I really do. I think people are going to hold tight onto a lot of that they've gained. And then, so, our hope is that people still want to come and stay at our place. I mean, the wineries are there, the breweries are there. So that's what you got to think about is what is close to the property that I want to buy? Where are people going to want to go? What are they going to do when it's, a rainy day? You want to just think about all of those things and, take that into consideration when you're trying to decide where to buy the property and then which one specifically.
Right. Yeah. I was guessing that there probably is a smaller amount of Airbnb in places like Nebraska, let's say, because there's less tourism,
Yeah. Who knows? But there's, as being in real estate, sometimes you sell your house quicker than you think you're going to sell your house. And you need a place to stay for a month before your next house is ready. Or if you're building, or if you're doing a big renovation, I've had people call me saying, we're renovating our kitchen. We're going to be kicked out for a month. I need a place to stay. So they're looking for a short-term rental for that. People relocating for jobs. There's all sorts of reasons why people, might be looking for a short-term rental and why it might make more sense than a hotel. So you got to kind of think outside the box, but definitely look in your market at the listings, check to see what their occupancy rate is, check to see what their prices are, determine whether you think that there's a need for it or is the market oversaturated. If the market's oversaturated, that's where you're going to have to go for maybe a really unique property that's going to catch people's attention. That's not like a typical property. And that's kind of what we went for, is that, just that wow factor of, oh, wow, this is something that I didn't expect. This is something different. So that's what we went for in hopes that we can keep our occupancy rate up there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to have to go check it out. So it sounds like you have things like then the hidden swing that you were talking about. Anything else that you guys did to it to make it unique?
It's with this house, it's more about the architecture of it. So I wish I could show you a picture of it.
Check it out. It's okay. When we're done here, I'll give you a good review.
Yeah, it's just this very cool, like silo look on one side and then like a modern home on the other side. So it's kind of that blend of those two things with the tin roof and all of that.
I'm sure people love sharing that with their friends and family. Like, look what we stayed. This is really cool. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. People love showing off kind of where they were. And there's a really nice deck with like big Adirondack chairs around a fire pit. We have 2 fire pits on the property for people.
Neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So people just really like it. Kind of a cool, modern, sleek kitchen that a lot of people, cook a lot of nice meals in. Our guests are always texting us pictures of their meals that they made and like pictures of them eating them. So
good. Yeah. So did you do anything like some of the people I talk to that stay on a regular basis and Airbnbs will have like the fridge stocked, or the owners will ask them what their favorite wine is or drink. So anything like that you guys do to make the stay even better?
Yeah, we do provide a complimentary bottle of wine from Delaplane Cellars, which is, we're in Delaplane, Virginia. So this is the winery that's kind of closest to our property. Okay. So we do provide a complimentary bottle there. And then even just little things, like we have one of those little boards where you can, change out the letters on it. And so we always write, welcome to the nest. We put their name on there. And then if we know it's an anniversary or a birthday, we'll put that up. If I know it's a birthday, I have a really cool birthday banner that I actually hang above the fireplace, like a cool modern one. Sure. And people love that. They always take pictures in front of it. And then if it's friends or family going, I usually will do like a little gift basket of just like snacks and things like that, or like s'more supplies for s'mores so that they can do that around the fire pit. Yeah. Yeah. Good. So we'll do something like that.
Yeah, very interesting. Is there any different tax structure or anything else that our listeners should know about as far as an Airbnb, how to set it up?
So one of the things I like about Airbnb is that they actually remit the state taxes on your behalf. So they collect taxes from the guest, and then Airbnb sends those taxes into the state. Okay. You also have to check to see if you have any local taxes. So sometimes areas have what's called a local marketing district tax. So like my parents have a property in Estes Park where they collect that local tax and they have to submit that check. Okay. And I think they have to submit that one on their own. I don't think VRBO does that for them. So you definitely have to look into taxes and make sure that all of that is, being taken care of in a timely manner. So you're not surprised with any tax bill. This will be our first, you might want to ask me the same question in a couple of months, because this will be our first year filing taxes with our Airbnb since we bought it in 2020. So we're kind of anxious to see what our CPA says.
Right. And I assume you like depreciate it the same way you would any other property. And
I believe so. And we've kept very good track of all of the expenses. So we have a good record of all of the money that we've spent as far as stocking it and getting it ready to go and everything like that. So we'll be writing a lot of things off.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, and then do you guys use it as well?
We do. And I always tell people, go into your calendar and just mark off the times that you want to go first. Like we always learn, like at Keller Williams, they always teach, plan your vacations first.
Yeah.
It's kind of that similar kind of thing. So you go in. So I thought about, okay, like I have it reserved for my birthday weekend. I have it reserved for my husband's birthday weekend. I have it reserved for New Year's Eve, things like that. Because otherwise what happens is you'll get a request and it's very tempting to just accept that reservation because you're like, well, what if we never get another reservation request again?
Right. It's like taking a buyer that contacts you. Let's go show them properties. I don't care. I may never show another one again. Right. Yeah.
So you definitely want to mark it off for the dates that you want to go there first so that you just know it's done. And you can always unmark it later if you decide, oh, let's do something else instead. Fine. Open it back up on your calendar. That's easy to do. But yeah, I talk to a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, I never go to our Airbnb. It's always booked. And I'm like, well, that's your fault.
Exactly. Oh, okay. Well, that's a good tip. So, and one other question that comes to my mind is insurance set up similar to just a regular investment property, or is it more expensive?
You have to let your insurance
all the time.
Yeah, you got to let your insurance carrier know that you're using it for short-term rental because they may or may not want to write the policy. They may want to refer you to somebody else. Okay. So I know we had to shop around a little bit. I don't even remember. My husband handles that. I don't remember who we ended up with, but you definitely have to shop around to find somebody that is fine with it and will give you, a reasonable quote for that.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Anything else important that you want to add?
The only other thing I would say is just when you're considering buying one, I always tell people go and stay at a couple Airbnbs in the area where you're thinking of buying. And if you're lucky enough to stay on site where the owner, like maybe it's a property where the owner has a house on site also, you can kind of pick their brain about their experience, ask them questions. Maybe you can even find out who their cleaner is. We did that at a property near ours before we started running ours, and it was invaluable. It was super, super helpful. Also, you can just see how they do things, how they set up their Airbnb, what do they provide, what do they not provide, how do they handle access, just to get some good ideas. So I always tell people, try to do that at least 2 different places and take really good notes, and then, use that information to make yours as good as you can.
Sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. So, and then one more question on the app, then what are you paying? Because obviously you don't have like a property management company, which is traditional for, investment properties, but so what are you paying?
Yeah, so the guest actually pays about a 15% service fee that goes to Airbnb. So they're paying that on top of the cleaning fee and the nightly rate.
Okay.
And then the host is charged 3%. So it's really not a big fee. The guest is actually taking on the majority of the fee for it. And then we are getting pretty much the cleaning fee plus our nightly rate. And then they take out that 3%.
Okay. Well, that's not bad at all. So
no, it's not bad at all. But I always tell people there are definite advantages to hiring a professional manager. So that's something to definitely think about if you, kind of think to yourself, okay, this is not something I'm up for. Definitely something to look into if you're willing to give up some more of the proceeds.
Oh, awesome. Well, good deal. Well, I appreciate all your time today, Jen, sharing all your invaluable information with us on Airbnbs. And how might everyone get a hold of you? What's the best? Is it your email, phone number?
So I'm happy to give my phone number. It's area code 202-590-5570. And my email address is jennifer@jmpsells.com. And that stands for Jennifer Mack Properties. That's my team. So it's jennifer@jmpsells.com.
Awesome. And check her out on social. It's always fun watching you and your hubby and your team and everything else that you guys do. I just love seeing what you guys are up to. So
thank you. Likewise, Renee.
Yeah. And thanks for being on with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
bye.
Wonderful. See ya.
Okay.